Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I welcome you to the Organ House Concert and Seminar Series. I am your host for today, and my name is Grace Adegoke. In case you are new here, I would love to give you a brief insight about the Organ House. The Organ House Concert and Seminar Series is an interdisciplinary research initiative that provides creative and intellectual spaces for scholars, composers, performers, educators, and professionals. Through rigorous engagements, the series champions an academic, artistic, and creative research agenda that is rooted in local realities while maintaining global relevance. The Organ House Concerts and Seminar Series research agenda is premised on promoting innovative and critical approaches to research in music, composition, performance, and the exploration or documentation of Nigeria and Africa's musical and cultural heritage. The October edition of the Organ House Concert and Seminar Series explored contemporary questions relevant to music studies today. The presentation and discussion offers insight into a wide range of ideas, from models of artistic research to the social history of Amapiano from South Africa. Through these presentations, participants engaged with diverse ideas and emerging perspectives. In this review session, we revisit key moments and takeaways from the October seminars, offering a reflective discussion of the month's resonant themes. But before we move on, I would love to introduce our discussant for today. And the first person with me is...
Hello, everyone. My name is Modupe Kachi. I am a postgraduate researcher of the Organ House, that's the music department of the Mountaintop University. And my research encompasses musicology, ethnomusicology, popular culture, youth culture, and cultural creative industries. Thank you for joining us today.
All right, thank you, Ma. And the next person.
My name is Alade Oluwaseun. I'm a postgraduate researcher at the Mountaintop University, Organ House. My research encompasses musicology, ethnomusicology, and African studies. We're so glad that you're joining us today. Thank you.
Before I invite our discussants to give their insight about the sessions we've had so far in the past few weeks, I would love to give you a recap of all the sessions. We explored the vital connection between creative practice, cultural heritage, and academic rigor in African music studies. The core theme spanned the methodology of artistic research, the socio-economic phenomenon of Amapiano, and the ethical obligation of the African scholar. The foundation of this discussion rested on establishing creative outputs like composition and performance as rigorous scholarly inquiry rather than mere illustration of theory. The rehearsal stage is crucial, acting as the testing ground where real-time audience and performers engage, whereby it gives the scholars a way to get a feedback from the primary data for scholarly reflection. During Elisha's presentation, he highlighted his case study, which situates around the recomposition of Dakeje. Elisha's work on Dakeje for choir and orchestra exemplified artistic research by solving a contextual problem within the MFM ministry, creating indigenous orchestral repertoires that fully embodied the church's spiritual warfare theology. This involved successfully blending Western orchestral technique with African idioms. Then, the challenge of composing for Western ozone like orchestra was raised as a potential compromise to decolonization. The consensus emphasized that while the two may have a colonial origin, the ultimate standard is coherence, the structural integrity and narrative logic of the music, which is the paramount to the quality of the creative output. Why for the Amapiano conversation held by Elfin Shisha? He spoke on the resilience and the entrepreneurship, the musical identity of Amapiano, which emerged from the fusion of South African genres, notable Kwaito and Deep House, the grassroots to the global, and he highlighted the fact that when Amapiano came into light, they had the place of sending this music to WhatsApp group, WhatsApp chat, and also these producers asked taxi drivers to play their songs in the taxi, and all of that before achieving a commercial breakthrough on radio in 2016. The integration of vocals and subsequent use of TikTok dance challenges propelled Amapiano to global dominance. Then we spoke about the socio-economic impact that Amapiano has as a business disruptor. The self-producers working with minimal equipment demonstrated that success and wealth could be achieved from within the township, epitomizing themes of social aspiration and challenging resilience on traditional power structure. Lastly, the ethical obligation of the African scholar. Dr. Kunuji synthesized the practical and academic lessons, calling for a dedicated ethical approach to African scholarship. He advocates for the integration of professional identity, one that has a cap that have many sides, where the roles of the performer, composer, and scholars are managed through strategic prioritization and viewed as mutually reinforcing. His work established the reciprocity as essential, ensuring collaboration. And again, he made mention of the band he worked with during his research work at Badagry. He said that due to the collaboration he had with these band leaders, they were able to earn royalties. And by that, we are propelling economic empowerment. So we are not just taking from this society, but we are also giving back to them. And he made mention and he highlighted that that's one of the major things we need to see as researchers. And finally, he made mention of the fact that he understands that in this part of the world, Nigeria, we have low funding for education, but that doesn't make it a fact that we shouldn't be able to document our works rather. Then he imputed the place of artificial intelligence. That artificial intelligence, which we all know as AI, has come to stay, and there is no need or there's no use of talking about it for it to go or for it to come back. But the only thing he instructs us to do is that we should own our crafts. When you own your craft, you'll be able to use these tools very well. So he advises or he admonishes everyone that even though we want to use these AI tools, we should also have our games, we should also have our work up to date. And that is all for this month's edition. I hope that you've been able to grasp everything I've said so far. Also, before we move on, I would love you guys to follow us on our social media platforms, most especially on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. And I believe that you'll be able to get insightful works from all these platforms. All right, now we'll go to our first discussant, Miss Dupe Ige. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, so hello everybody. Thank you for joining us once again. So basically, we're just doing a recap of some of the things that resonated with us from the presentations that have occurred, throughout October. And I know some of us on the call remember the presentation by Mr. Elisha Adegoke doing artistic research in contemporary Nigeria. And it was all about, him using artistic research to discuss his work, his recomposition of Dakeje, Dr. Olukoya's Dakeje. And of course, I'm sure we all remember how boisterous that conversation was and how very interactive, which is why, again, the Organ House Concert and Seminar Series is here. This is what it is here for, to create an enabling environment where these conversations can be had, arguments, critical discourses can be had, so that we can add to knowledge. So Mr. Adegoke established artistic research as a practice rooted in the making, creative process, and experience of art. So critically, in this framework, the creative output, whether it is composition or performance, is not a mere illustration of theory, but an integral part of the inquiry itself, aimed at the creation and critique of new knowledge. So once upon a time, if we considered composition as just an illustration of a theory, artistic research now gives us the opportunity for it to be part of the inquiry process, okay, which aims at the creation and critique of new knowledge. So in his presentation, he mentions 3 theoretical frameworks. First is Bogdorf, which talks about contextualizing or contextualization, methodology, and knowledge enhancement. So in artistic research, what we are doing is, first, we are contextualizing this work. We're putting it in conversation with things that have gone ahead, okay? We're putting it in proper context. Secondly, we are talking about how strong is your methodology, right? And the third is knowledge enhancement. Everything after your research is done must contribute to knowledge enhancement. And of course, secondly, he spoke about Bourdieu, who talks about habitus and durable dispositions within social context. So as an artistic researcher, your habitus plays an integral part in your research, right? And thirdly, he mentioned Csikszentmihalyi. That's a Hungarian name, which is not very common to pronounce for us. But he talks about the fact that the creative outcome must be validated when it is accepted as valuable by the field, which is the gatekeepers, for instance, in this situation, maybe musicians, composers, scholars, and it is incorporated into the domain, which is the cultural system, which in Mr. Elisha's work would be the MFM congregation, okay, which is the core of what Csikszentmihalyi's systems model is, right? And then, of course, he mentioned some of the pioneers that have done this. Like we said, you have to contextualize it, put it in conversation with what others have done. Of course, he mentioned Akinyuba, Ayabankole, Fela Showande, who pioneered compositional experimentation. And the innovative part is that they generated concepts like African pianism and performative epistemologies, right? Now, for Mr. Elisha, he had a 5-step, how do I say it? Phrase. Oh, yes. Methodology, if I should put it that way. The first is it moves from question. Now, inquiry. Artistic research questions everything, right? So, but the first thing was there was a problem to solve. What was the problem? He was approached by MFM, Mountain of Fire Ministries Music, to please compose an orchestral arrangement of Dr. Dikeo's song Dakeje, right? And so that was the inquiry. That was the problem that he needed to solve. And this composition needed to speak to the spiritual theologies of MFM, right? It had to speak to them, to their belief in prayer and warfare, right? So it moved on to the second stage, which is composition. He now used his habitus, right, to compose, to bring together or to recompose, this particular piece, using different, styles, rhythm, and all, structure, instrumentation, motifs, harmonies, which now moved us to the third stage, which is rehearsal and performance, which is really the testing ground. Because here in this stage, you will find, okay, so what am I doing right? What sound is, what part is louder than the other part? How can I balance this, this? And of course, the performance, where you put your whole rehearsal to the test to see how the people have, embraced it. And we move on from there to the fourth stage, which is reflection. Now, this is where the work of the researcher and the scholar comes to play, where you reflect. So artistic research is very reflexive. You think about the processes that you put yourself through to come about this composition or this performance, right? So, and you document it, right? So the documentation reveals what worked, what failed, new questions, and which now summarily takes us to the last stage, which is the knowledge production. New compositional methods, cultural meaning, strategies will emerge, right? So these were the 5 steps that Mr. Elisha, went through to come about this. And of course, there were a lot of questions that arose from that, which is what we expect when we come into a scholarly environment. So the talk about, are we really decolonizing, or is it an attempt to indigenize, or is it an interculturalism attempt? I'm going to throw that question now open to everybody, because my opinion, I don't know if you do have opinions, is that artistic research can be seen through the lens of any concept, right? As long as it, I wrote down some of my notes, as long as it has, it accomplishes the knowledge triangle. I shall find it, I'm sure. Just give me a second. As long as it accomplishes the knowledge triangle, right? It must come about new knowledge. It must have a strong methodology, right? Now, when you have those things, you can look at it through the lens of any concept. Earlier on in the day, we were discussing, me and my colleague here, Semilore, and we're talking about that the way it comes to me is that artistic research is like when you have 4 blind men trying to find out what, they bring them to an elephant, but they're blind, and they're trying to figure out what is this thing in front of them. The first one touches the trunk and says, oh, this feels like a branch of a tree. The second one touches the tummy and says, oh, this feels like a wall, a thick, maybe succulent wall. The third one touches the leg and says it feels like a tree trunk. So they are right, they're all right, but they're all wrong because they don't have the broader picture. So artistic research, for me, can be seen through the lens of anything, as long as you have first of all, there's a problem, you are questioning things, right? Secondly, you use your habitus to bring about the composition of the performance. Thirdly, you put it to test, right? Then you reflect on what you have done, you put it together, and you produce new knowledge. New knowledge in the case of Mr. Elisha is the fact that now he has a new composition, right? It's novel, even though there have been different works on Dakeje, right, that have existed, but this particular orchestral piece has not existed before, which you can say is addition to knowledge, and it is accepted by the field, right, and the gatekeepers. So that for me is my reflection and my takeaway. Okay, so I don't know if anybody else
That was awesome.
has anything to
Yeah,
say.
that's awesome. So before we get back to Miss Ige's reflection, I would call on Mrs. Tokwe to hear our view about what you have to say. Mrs. Tokwe.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we
Hello?
can. But it's breaking a bit. Maybe you shouldn't use your video, so maybe that will help to. That will help
Okay.
to.
Hello, can you hear me better?
Yes, we can.
It's better.
All right, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Semilore. I am a postgraduate researcher at the Mountaintop University Organ House, and my research encompasses ethnomusicology and digital humanities. I am going to have, for this review section, I'm going to have a comparative review of active research from the perspectives of
Mrs. Tokwe, we can't hear you. Oh, wow. All right. We are sorry about that. I believe she has network glitch over there. So before she gets back, I would call on Miss Semilore for a point of view. Please, could you lend your voice over this subject matter?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's very nice to be here.
Welcome.
I would like to talk about Amapiano, to give my reflection on Amapiano. I remember some years back when Amapiano started trending in Nigeria, and I asked my friend, "What is this Amapiano thing?" Everybody is saying Amapiano, Amapiano. What is Amapiano exactly? And how can I identify it? Because I've been hearing people play it, and I could sense that this is something different. But I could not really pinpoint
Push your finger.
The difference. What makes it the difference?
this sound is different, but how can I explain it? So imagine my shock. Would I say shock? Or how I is like the worst when we got to have a section on Amapiano 2 weeks ago, and I really, really concentrated. And then one thing that really struck with me was Amapiano is the voice of the youth. Amapiano is the voice of the youth, like a symbol of hope. And Mr. Elton started by saying that the reason for his research was because he has read so many articles about jazz and how people could relate to jazz and how jazz had influenced the youth or the people at that time when jazz was coming out. But there is no music for the youth of this generation. In South Africa, there was no music for the youth of this generation. And then it says Amapiano is the music of the youth because Amapiano is a reflection of the daily lives of the youth of South Africa. And so this must be spoken, like we have to see Amapiano through an academic lens. And that was one of the reasons for his research in Amapiano. And when we're talking about the origin of Amapiano, he said Amapiano started in the year 2010, in the mid-2010. Of course, the name Amapiano was not given to it, but that sound already started in the year 2010, the mid-2010. People had begun to come around to, to form something, to think about something, and then that group was in existence. But in the year 2012, the name Amapiano was given to that group. Amapiano was just an instrumental music. People coming together to just vibe and to just put something together. Let me add this instrument with this instrument with this instrument, and let me just see what it's going to give me. And then Amapiano was a result of that experiment. Can I call it an experiment?
Well,
Amapiano was a result of that experiment. And then it says Amapiano in Zulu means pianos. That means bringing up different pianos, different pianos playing different melodic parts or different voices, and then just combining them together and that gave birth to what we know as Amapiano. But of course, we cannot say Amapiano just dropped out or Amapiano just decided from nowhere. There had to be like a trace, an origin, the roots. And so it traced Amapiano to Kwato. He had said Kwato was one of the genres of music that gave birth to, Amapiano. And when we talk about Amapiano too, Amapiano, what does Amapiano represent? It spoke about one of the things that Amapiano represents. It says represents the social and cultural origins of the people that gave them an ability to think and find something to bring out that creativity due to the appetite that happened. Things that become very difficult for the South Africans, and they were relying on the government. And so said, we're not going to rely on the government anymore. We're going to take things by the horn. Is that what they say? We're going to grab the bull by the horn, and we're going to find something for ourselves. We're going to find something for ourselves. And Amapiano is that symbol of hope that we were able to do it. Yeah. Amapiano is also combined with Santi. Santi is like a very important symbol to Amapiano. Santi is that place that every youth wants to take their parents to. Santi is like the promised land. You refer to it as the promised land. I want to leave this poverty and go somewhere better. I want to take my family out of the slums. I want to live a better life. And so the place they were going to was Swansea. And so Amapiano was like the gateway to that Swansea. Amapiano was a gateway to that Swansea. And Amapiano gave these youths, it changed their lives. It gave them something. No, they could just be an ordinary youth. And one day they're mixing sound and this, and poof, that sound comes out, and then that sound is appreciated worldwide. And it spoke about one of the challenges of Amapiano, and one of the challenges that the producers and also the composers went through with Amapiano. No, we have to remember that Amapiano came out as a resilience to the government, as a sort of, you people are not doing anything for us. We can do it ourselves. And so even when Amapiano came out, the government weren't putting these songs on display. They were not backing them. They're not backing them up. They still had to struggle. They had to also for themselves, And these people went from taxman to taxman. They're like, I beg, play our song. Please play our song. Yeah. And then it was just WhatsApp and Facebook. That's where the social media. That's the social media that was really prominent there. And so they would always post their songs. Follow. Please listen to. I can imagine waving that one of the taxi. I'll pay you 5,000 naira. Please just play my song. Exactly. Play my song so that these people can hear that we have something. And that first step was one of the breakthroughs for Amapiano. People started, hearing it. People started listening to it, and then little by little, it began to gain global recognition. Even despite the fact that the government were not backing them up, do you know that Amapiano was not also heard on the radio? People were not listening to it on the radio. And even now they had Amapiano in South Africa. He also said the government had not used it as a source of revenue for the country. That Amapiano could have been a very good source of revenue for the country. In London, they have an Amapiano Fest. They have Amapiano Fest in London. And, for producers who have produced it, who were like the originators in quotes of this genre of music, and they see other people doing it, they see other people having a festival of what should have been theirs, is one of the challenges they go through. But social media came and saved today. Now we have TikTok. We have TikTok challenges where, everybody comes, even while they are in the studio, they just play a snippet of whatever is going on. Yeah. Okay, this is my original. Yeah. And they post it on TikTok. Even before the song is being released, there is a challenge. Come on. That follows the song. So once the song is being released, there's this banger that everybody is expecting. Everybody has already danced to the challenge and stuff like that. In 2016, a major thing happened to Amapiano. A man by the name DJ Crook was one of the first people to air Amapiano. I think this was also one of the things that also gave Amapiano a more global recognition and platform. You know, he had it on this radio station, YFM. It's a radio station for the youth. And so I think it's also one of what's the word to put it? You know, as a youth, you always want to
listen to maybe the events or something going on the radio.
Yes. I'm also trying to get the word transgress. Yes. And so, as a youth, you always want to do something out of the norm. You always want to try your thing. And so, what he did was he put this genre of music that was just limited to that geographical, and he said, you know what? I'm going to put it to the world. Let me hear it. People have to hear this sound. People have to hear it. So that was also one of the things that gave Amapiano a global platform. And then in 2019 too, Amapiano changed the bit. It wasn't at the beginning we said Amapiano was an instrumental music. In 2019, Amapiano became more of a storytelling. Vocals were added to Amapiano. So people could place, okay, so this is what the song is all about. So this is how I can place my emotions with this song. I can feel what this person is saying. I can relate. He said Shasha was one of the first female vocalists. She's the first one of
exactly.
She's the first female vocalist to sing to an Amapiano, and she was a story writer. She was a love singer. She liked to sing, and so that also gave. I think that also broadened Amapiano's landscape on the global space. People were able to relate with whatever lyrics that she was saying, and it's just went wild. And today we have different versions of Amapiano. Now we have the Amapiano on its own. We have even the Nigerian style Amapiano where we mixed our hip hop with the Amapiano.
There you go.
And when I listen to Amapiano, I'm like, God, this is something. We Africans, we are creative.
Yes,
we are so creative. We are so creative, and it is amazing seeing how this genre of music is not just a form of entertainment, but it's a form of hope and a form of storytelling to say we passed through this, and now we are there.
Yep.
We've been there. We are there already, and we already have what we want. We are able to stand for ourselves, and we're able to make something out of ourselves. We're able to make something out of our towns, out of our localities, and it has gone global.
Wow.
So
Thank
beautiful.
you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
That was amazing.
I know. Thank you so much. So, Mrs. Tope, are you back?
Yes, I'm back. Can you hear me, please?
Yes,
Loud and clear.
yes, we can.
Thank you very much. Yes, so I was about to give a comparative review on the presentations of Mr. Adegoke and Dr. Kunoji. But before then, I would quickly do a review of Dr. Kunoji's presentation so that we can have a balanced review. Since Mr. Adegoke's presentation has already been reviewed by Mrs. Kachi. So the title of the presentation, Integrating Creative, Artistic, and Scholarly Work in Music. Discuss the complex and synergetic relationship between the roles of a composer, arranger, band leader, and a scholar, particularly within the field of African music studies. I'm going to talk a little about the core themes. The central theme revolved around balancing multiple demanding roles, because Dr. Kunoji is all of the above. He is a composer, he's a performer, he's a band leader, and then he is a scholar. He rejected the idea of wearing many hats. He preferred to see his identity as one who is wearing one hat with many sides. And all of those sides are shaped by his background and worldview. He talked about his background in Badagry, in Lagos, in the Anglican, and different places like that. His approach to balancing these roles is characterized by strategic prioritization. So he was talking about being able to balance the roles. He deliberately limits his performance and creative output to one major funded project per year, channeling the rest of his energy into scholarly writing, which he deems most critical at this stage of his career as a lecturer and a budding scholar. He advocates for leveraging all opportunities to serve multiple goals. For example, he joined a cathedral choir not purely for performance, but as a registered study to study liturgical music and inculturation, asking how the use of Western composers like Bach and William Byrd might exclude or alienate the broader community. So in the African context, Dr. Kuji defines artistic research as a self-reflective method of inquiry, akin to autoethnography, a subjective way of knowing what takes one practice as an artist. While he views artistic research as a neutral methodology, he argues that in the African context, it must be applied to solve concrete problems. So it is not just about the methodology, the framework, and all of that we talk about in academia. It is more about what the local people would benefit from it, solving concrete problems. He noted that African scholars often do not have the luxury of pursuing detached subjects when there are incredibly gifted musicians in the community who are marginalized, working as farm laborers or gatesmen. He talked about the fact that everywhere in the South African community, you find people singing extremely well, but they just see it as a normal thing because they are there being gardeners, being drivers or laborers somewhere. And how do you expect scholars in that kind of environment to leave all of those talents and gifts and then go on to another place to start looking for what to research about? And the key moment for me in this presentation is the non-negotiable principle of reciprocity when conducting research in undeserved and materially deprived communities. His doctoral research with the Badagry musical tradition transformed into a community engagement, or what we call public-facing project. So instead of merely extracting that data, he collaborated with a band to record an album. And this project success led to the album being accepted by Mama Dance in collaboration with Universal Records, enabling the musicians back in Badagry to earn ongoing royalties from their work, providing them with a stable income years after the initial recording. This experience convinced him that researchers have platforms that can actively contribute to social and economic transformation and empowerment. Now, lastly, in that he talked about one. I'll talk about one of the challenges he noted that the major challenge facing African research is the abundance of under-researched and undocumented traditions, where he gave an example of nobody researching the vocal style of Shola Alinsin, even though somebody came up later in the question and answer session to talk about how many of these people have been researched, but there's no publicity for it, there's no funding and all of that. So he strongly champions convivial scholarship and the inevitability of collaboration. He he mentioned the fact that it is very impossible for a scholar to do very well, especially in the African community, without collaboration. And then for future vision, he sees the potential of artistic research in bringing marginalized practices into global scholarship. I'm going to end that there, and then I'll give a brief comparative review between his perspective and that of Mr. Adegoke. Their presentations offer complementary, although distinct views on the nature, the methodology, and validation of artistic research, especially in Africa. While both scholars fundamentally assert the legitimacy of non-textual knowledge generated through creative practice, they focus on different aspects of the research lifestyle. That is, Adegoke emphasizes the experiential and phenomenological core, while Kunuji focuses on the methodological and ethical framework. From Elisha's perspective, we have the experiential term. Elisha's view positions the act of artistic creation itself as the primary research methodology. For him, it is the work, it is your performance or your composition that's the primary research methodology. The central argument revolves around knowing through doing. So you want to know something about a particular composition, do it, compose it, and then you will understand more. When knowledge is discovered and articulated through the materials, the processes, and the internal dialogue of the artist or the composer. His key concept is that artwork is not merely an illustration of an idea, but the embodiment of the research finding.
Yes.
And he validated his work through coherence and resonance, because it's the ability of the artwork to communicate an experience that is otherwise inexpressible through conventional scholarly work that makes it a research. And this is why we call it autoethnography or phenomenological methodologies. But from Dr. Kunuji's perspective, his approach is geared towards institutionalizing and rigorously validating artistic research within the broader academic landscape. The focus is less on the experience and more on establishing robust criteria for how artistic research can be described, defended, and disseminated to a wider scholarly audience. So he focused more on establishing clear, systematic frameworks for methodology, documentation, and ethical consideration in artistic research. And its key concept is about transferability and critique. The research must not only be personally resonant, not just about the researcher, not just about the scholar, but it must also offer structured insights that can be analyzed and critiqued by non-practitioners. And then he validated this argument through his explicit documentation. That is, for example, research statements that translate the tacit knowledge of the art practice into transparent and accountable terms, ensuring ethical responsibilities are met, and especially in projects involving community or lived experience. So in comparison, the two presentations represent the ongoing tension in artistic research between practice, championed by Elijah, and structure, as referred to by Dr. Kunuji. Elijah defends the unique subjectivity of the artist researcher or composer researcher, advocating for the intrinsic value of the artistic products as knowledge, while Kunuji focused on frameworks and provides the necessary bridge to the traditional academy, offering tools to legitimize and compare artistic outputs with other research disciplines. So to conclude, I would say that both perspectives are essential components for the maturity of and execution of artistic research. Elisha reinforces the distinctive contribution of artistic research to knowledge, that is, the ability to articulate embodied and affective insights. Kunuji, however, provides the survival mechanism for artistic research, that is, the rigorous documentation and ethical scaffolding required for artistic research to be accepted, funded, and disseminated as a credible research discipline. Together, they outline a field that is both radically practice-led and academically accountable, highlighting that successful artistic research must navigate both the immersive, experiential, and the disciplined, transparent aspects of musical studies. Thank you very much. So from all that I have said, I believe that we'll be able to we have been able to understand that both methods of artistic research are not just valid, but they are important for the establishment of the field, that's the field of music scholarship in Africa, especially in this century and at this time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mrs. Temitope. That was an awesome presentation. Yeah. Now, I believe we all are aware that this is a scholarly platform. This is where we exchange ideas and thereabouts. So I believe this is also a call to everyone on this platform, because there is something that was said, that's Mrs. Ige and also Mrs. Tope. She made mention of collaboration, and even during the course of conversation when we are having it over the month, Dr. Kunoji spoke about collaboration and how it helps your career as a music person, be it you're a performer or you're a researcher. So I believe this is a call for us to collaborate with one another and establish something that can go on the global phase. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mrs. Ige. Thank you, Ms. Semilore. And thank you, Mrs. Tope. Now we are in our question and answer session, and also contribution. Yes, contribution. So I would love you to raise your hands if you have something to say, and I'll call upon you and allow you to speak. All right, as we are waiting for someone to raise their hand, I want to remind you all that you should follow us on our social media platform. Also, there was a link sent to us during the course of the week, and in that link it has the book that we have to read next week. So I would imply every one of us to read that book so that by next week we'll be able to have a solid conversation. Thank you. So Mr. Adeoluwa, good afternoon. Please, can we have you on?
Thank you, our hostess and the discussants. Thank you. You've done a very good job. We can only say God bless you all and bless the department hosts of this program. Well, I must confess that I was not at the last or maybe the last two series, especially the one by Elisha on artistic research. My interest is quite no one's in that area. I just want us to have a discussion of that artistic research. I got just the gist or a gist of it when the last speaker was speaking, but I didn't really get the thrust. Another confession, I didn't get the thrust of what he was saying about artistic research. I want us to look at statistic research, the way he presented it. Is it a field of study? Is it an approach? Methodology? Let us look at that, because I didn't really get that. Then again, I think, my opinion, this is scholarship now. Artistic research is one of the things we use in navigating creative musicology, and I don't feel people have done that work in that area. If you are familiar with Stephen Olusoji, it's in Sanados there in Lagos, in Nigeria. There has done few works around that area with this piano compositions which he calls Apala. That was what they call the waka or something like that. So I don't know whether the discussants or the other members on this program now can help us make contributions to that? Is it a methodology? If it is not, is there any significant difference between artistic research and creative musicology, which Akiba started as a creative musicology, later changed to creative musicology? Whether we can discuss another side, it can really help us to have a compromise that becomes more conventional. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Professor. I was corrected. Thank you, Professor Adeolowa. If I can get you right, you have that is artistic research a methodology or it's a field on its own, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. So please let me bring it back home, then would go to us. Any of the discussants, do we have anything to say about that?
Well, I will give what I feel, what I think, and like I said, like you have all said, it's a safe space, it's a scholarly environment where we can discuss and be corrected. Prof, sir, I greet you. And I know that we have very powerful scholars on the call, so I'll be very honored if we can all chip in. But in my opinion, artistic research is a field of study that has its own methodology, methodologies. It's like ethnomusicology or musicology. Like we discussed concerning Mr. Elisha's presentation, he used different theoretical frameworks and a methodology, but artistic research, I mean, even though it's a new developing field of study, I think it just like over 2 decades,
20 years.
Yeah, old. But in my opinion, it's a field of study. So, but I will throw the floor open to our scholars and our researchers in the house.
All right, thank
you.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Gay. Well, I'm not my type of scholarship presentation is not to impose opinion. And if anybody wants to impose opinion, that person is not yet there. I'm not imposing my opinion at all. I just want us to have a very sincere, I just want us to have a very robust discourse on this artistic research. You have heard of professor of musicology, you heard of professor of conducting, professor of ethnomusicology, professor of ecomusicology, professor of composition. Now, we will now talk of professor of artistic research. Let's start from there. What are the methodologies we use in artistic research? I just want to robust discuss because when that caught my attention when Mr. Topper was having that discuss with us, and I was trying to get it, but I didn't really get the trust. I know few little things about artistic research. It may not be new, but I think that already existing, but because they are not named or because they are not known in some clime, it appears as if it is known. When the issue of tonal harmony started, people did know that we had tonal harmony in Africa. But when people started, okay, look at this is what these guys are saying. We already have it there. I can convincingly say that for me, those people, some of our colleagues here in Nigeria, I don't want to go far. Some of our colleagues here have used that as a methodology to arrive at their works in creative musicology by not dishonoring the Western harmony that you are taught in the classroom, but by saying that these are the things that are practicable in the field that I met in the field, which I think was part of the reflections of Kuniji's lecture here. These are the things I met at the field, and I'm writing it along this side. So they use that as a methodology. I mean, how do you want to defend when you have harmony in seconds? If you go to the Ekiti, when somebody is singing to, and they're part with Ray, which person I will you start saying no? When you want to talk of, don't talk of a crossing of path. And you get that in a lot of African villages, African harmonies, beautiful harmonies. So that's why I think that, well, to make artistic research a field, we will need more evidence, empirical ones, as against those of us who feel that it's a methodology. And sincerely, I want to say it again. I'm not saying it must not be a field. Things develop beyond what you know. In every area, science, we come today, they say, oh, they made a mistake, especially in applied medicine. Stop this medication. They're the one who prescribed that medication. Tell you, they say, oh, we discovered that the medication is causing polio. It's in every area. So I'm not saying it cannot be a field, but we need empirical works more globally. So if others can contribute sincerely, it will help us to navigate this terrain very well. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Professor. And yes, that's quite a profound question. Dr. Albert, please, can we have you?
Yeah, thank you. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Thank you, the presenters, and I want to send special greetings to Professor Okwade. How are you, sir?
Thank you, sir. God bless you, Dr. Albert.
Amen. Thank you, sir. I want to just my input to build on the foundation that my lecturer, my teacher, Professor Okwade just listed. To me, I feel artistic research is best understood as an approach and a methodology, depending on the context and the emphasis. Like the prof rightly said, for us to make it a field of study, we need something concrete that we can hold on to, not in the peripheries. If you look at the word artistic research, you can split it into two to understand the concept. It is a performative research. For you to, it's like a piloted route to an end. So you need to perform it to be able to come up with the result, outcome you want. So it's a methodology, it's an approach to getting where you are going. But nothing is impossible. For us to make it a field of study, we need beyond just the title. We need to be able maybe recoin or recraft or redraft the name such it will embody that. But the word artistic research is an approach and it's a methodology to my own understanding.
All right. Wow, that's a quite profound point of view. And yes, thank you, sir. Mrs. Tope, please, you can unmute your mic.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Prof. Okwade, for the question. Yes, I believe that artistic research can both be a methodology and a field of study. Since the beginning of what we now know as artistic research, like Dr. Kunoji mentioned when you made his presentation, it has always been, artistic research has always been. Dr. Ayolunoti also mentioned it last week. But when it has now been defined as artistic research, it has been used as a method to arrive at different fields of different subfields in music studies. But recently, artistic research has been evolving into a distinct academic field, especially in Europe and Australia. In this sense, it has its own journals, its own PhD programs and conferences, like the Journal for Artistic Research or Society for Artistic Research. And their methods, they now use autoethnography as a method, which we say it is artistic research on its own. Autoethnography, phenomenology, those are methods that we use even in other aspects of music studies. And they now use those as the methods for this. Although it is not, because it is a recent field of study, it is just coming up. So it is not popular everywhere. In fact, it is not here right now in Africa. But in the next few years, decades, we will see these things taking ground and establishing far beyond dismissal or ignoring. So it's not something that we can ignore. It is already here. It is just that it is a baby of the field right now. So, but as it is right now, we see it we use it every day as a method. So it makes our arguments correct that it is a method, but it can also be a field of study, and it will be in the nearest future. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Tope. Well, I like the narrative you made. The only one I disagree with you is the last statement that it will be in the next few years. It may not be, it may be, it may not be. So you cannot say it will be, because don't also forget that we started as comparative musicology, which didn't stand the test of time, and it was changed to ethnomusicology. So Europe, Australia, I don't know. I'm in the US. I don't know whether it's a field in America yet. I don't know. I'm not saying it is not, but I do not know yet. We may need to subject this one to further discourse, further investigation, not just from our own climb alone, because that is what scholarship is all about. But it may be a bit difficult for us to just jump at it if we are not already sure that is an acceptable field of our studies. If what is more acceptable now is as a methodology, it may be good for us to stay there. But however, if you want to the line of it, because I guess my suspicion this one is that this is a graduate seminar being hosted by our graduate students. I guess that, so we also have that role to learn from you and also to give a little guidance too. That's my approach to my students, because the best teacher we only learn from the students because they are more prominent in the field. So that's why I'm choosing my words this way. That please let us subject it to further investigation for us to now know where we can anticipate it, whether it's a field, it's a study. From what Mr. Tope said, who did the review, something is sure that you are the same page that, well, it has been used as it can be used as both methodology and as a field, which is good. We know that we can use it as a methodology. But for us to now make sure to make a bold statement that it is a field of study, because it's not too popular here, in Europe is there, in Australia is there, we may need also to take it to our laboratory here first. If it's a field of study, what methodology do we use to carry out our investigation when we are working on artistic research as a field of study? You have talked of ethnographic, yes. Creative musicology uses ethnographic study too. I mean, ethnographic study can be used, applied in several areas, even in composition. It can be. So that may not suffice because of that. So I would just want to say that let it be in our part of our action plan. While we take it as whether as field of methodology, let us investigate more. That is what scholarship means. Let us have more robust programs, discuss internationally, people from different areas in composition, historiology, historicity, whatever you want to call it, them just come together and discuss it and have a compromise. But sincerely, let me tell you, Organ House, you have done well for all of us. And may your generation continue to increase for good in Jesus' name.
Amen. Thank
You
you.
have done well coming up weekly with these programs and bringing up issues. This is what academics is. And I've seen that here we do not criticize narratives. We do not criticize presentations. That's what I love. We only bring intervention. So what I'm bringing also is an intervention, not criticizing at all. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Professor Adeoluwa. That was
Thank you, sir.
a kind word, and we appreciate your kind word. Thank you. Just to put a recap to what Professor Adeoluwa said, basically, he's trying to say that we shouldn't put a justified definition to this word called artistic research. Rather, we should be of an open mind, because the fact that it is an early form of study doesn't necessarily mean that it is not something that can be recognized, but we need to see how it checks the test of time, and yes, you'd use it in the future. Thank you once again, Professor. Do we have anyone with a contribution, and before we wrap up for the day? All right, as we are waiting, I would like to bring it to our notice that we would be reviewing the book of Professor Agawi next week, Thursday, by 1 p.m. on this platform. So please, there was a link sent to us during the course of the week. So we can just click on the link and it takes us directly to the book. So we'll just read the book, and when we come back next week, we'll review it together. Also, we should follow us on our social media platforms, that's on YouTube, so that you can get the latest and insightful works that we've done so far. All right, thank you so much. So with no further question, would like to put this session to a wrap. So once again, we appreciate you coming to this platform, sharing your ideas, and also bringing up questions that would take us out of this place and want to do more. Oh, all right. Dr. Oladele, please.
Hello, thank you so much. I believe you can hear me.
Loud and clear.
Okay, thank you so much. Well, thanks so much, our host for today, Grace. Thank Scholar Grace or Mrs. Grace. Yeah, thank you so much, and thanks for the one at the panel. Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation, and the rapping here and there, the engagement here and there. Thanks so much. Yeah, well, thank you, Prof. I think I noticed Prof was discussing the other time. Thank you so much, Prof. Adeolu Okwade. Yeah, well, as you mentioned, Prof, this is organized seminar series, of course, hosted by our in-house scholars. It is not a graduate seminar. It is not a graduate affair. It's just that graduates are doing professorial work on their seat today. So it's not a graduate affair. It's actually the normal organhouse series where everybody in the world, across the world joins. So, and I will give kudos to our scholars for doing this for us. Now, just a quick one on the artistic research of a team. Well, I'm sure we've had it has been an interesting conversation in the last, I think, in the last few weeks, last year, and we've been on it here and there. So the point is, like Tokwe discussed, artistic research is a method, it's a field, it's an approach, it is whatever we call it, depending on where we stand. It's an eclectic phenomenon. So depending on wherever we are standing. Of course, I know in Nigeria, there have been an antecedent to this kind of practice, but it has not been called artistic research in our environment. In South Africa, it's a big deal. I know of more than 3 PhDs who are now even in professor in their field who graduated with artistic research. One piano player, one pianist, one composer, and the other person is a jazz pianist. So, and again, and 5 years ago, I think, I was part of those who also hosted a huge conversation around artistic research in South Africa. It was a 5 or 10 years project sponsored by the Mellon Foundation from America. And we had series of conferences for more than 5 years at a roll, a global conference for that matter. And we have series of publication, people coming from across the world to South Africa to engage in this conversation. So it's a field. Yeah, to put it that way, it's a field actually. It's an emerging field. And it is fast dominating even the discourse in creative sectors right now. Yeah, although it is not a popular thing in Nigeria, I think, but in Southern Africa and places like Canada, Australia is a big deal, even in the UK. I think what we need to do, we are going to intensify this conversation to provide more context for it. There are books and there have been even white papers across the world. For instance, we have what they call the Vienna Declaration on Artistic Research, which is a recent one. It's a Vienna Declaration is a world conference on creative practice scholarly. So it was a declaration that has been signed into law across a region. So the Vienna Declaration is quite strong. You can just search online for it. You will get it. Anybody can search online. You will get the And again, there are journals. There is one I can quickly mention. ARA, Artistic Research in Africa, is a journal from South Africa. Is based at Wits School of Art, Johannesburg. That's the project I was discussing earlier. So the question is, artistic research is not a way to override other forms. Of course, like Professor mentioned, when comparative musicology emerged in the early 20th century, ethnomusicology came in the 50s. It does not kill, let me use that word. It didn't wipe away comparative musicology. People still do comparative musicology in Europe, particularly in Germany. Netherlands is still a huge and very strong field, comparative musicology. Although ethnomusicology is popular in the US, and because people turn to ethnomusicology in the US, people don't talk more about comparative musicology. But within the musicological sector, even in the US, comparative musicology still exists today. In fact, very, very fresh and still in very, debate is so intense as before, But because in Africa, particularly ethnomusicology gained traction because of what it is. Let me not be discussing that. That's not something it's a common knowledge already. So, but the point is, artistic research, one thing I want to say from today's conversation is that it is very difficult to try to define. I think that's what we need to do away from. Rather, it's a question that we keep asking. It's a question. It gives us more opportunity to ask important questions. The question that a field like, let's say, musicology, composition, popular music cannot ask on their own. Artistic research provide that kind of avenue for creatives, scholars, educators to ask that question. So it stretches beyond one disciplinary boundary. So for instance, I have seen fantastic works. You can check online with just a quick Google search on Georgina Bond, or we can say Georgina Bond, Alexander Davis. These are big scholars. They are musicologists, but you need to see their books or their works on artistic research in music. So these are the kind of thinking is a big one across the world right now. And that's why I think it's important for us at Organals to also open that conversation. So doing this is also a way to mediate, do what we are doing in a more, to intensify our conversation around it. Creative musicology, of course, is there, but it does not take the place of artistic research. Let's not go that route. Yeah, because even creative musicology needs artistic research to survive. Yeah, it needs, because artistic research is global. Creative musicology, of course, is within us, and we understand the story behind it. So the question is, how can creative musicology take advantage, particularly in the Nigerian context, of the frameworks, the availability of resources or models that artistic research offers? That's a question we should ask ourselves. Like I said, it is about question. It's not about, there's no one A is A. No, in this conversation. Scholarly conversations, scientific conversations are often open-ended. Depending on wherever we are standing, we should be able to engage the concept. So it's a concept, it's a field, it's an approach, it's a method. The question is, how can we in Nigeria, take advantage or create something out of this idea of artistic research? Like Tope said, I believe with Tope, it's a field. It is a field. It's already a big deal in South Africa. Yeah, go to study. You just check a simple Google search on Stellenbosch thesis, online thesis archive. You see more than 10 in the last 2-3 years already. So it's a field. It's a field. People are working on a so, but that does not override what has been. Of course, it is amendable. We can work with it, and so it is not a rivalry field. So let's not say that way. It's not rivaling ethnomusicology. It's not rivaling. Yeah. So it's a choice. People can go in that route, use it as a method, as a framework, or if they want, they can go to where it is so popular and base their field on it. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Ayaride. I think I hope I'm not breaking protocols. Our host, am I breaking protocol? Do I continue or shut up? Okay, well, I think we are getting to where we need to get to now. I have said that this thing need more robust discourse. It's not something you can just kill today and say, oh, it is. More especially when in some climes they already embraced it as a field. But there's a common currency in all the things we are saying here. It's a field, it's an approach, it's a methodology. Those are the common currency we have in this discourse now. I think Dr. Ride has said it that well. We may still subject this more because you see what one of the things we must run away from that has killed us in Africa is because it's already in Europe. Australians are using it. Americans are using it. And that you see that today, those in contemporary church or contemporary worship music, the lead vocal is seen as the star. The backups are not seen as the star. I see the backup singers trying to fight. I also want to lead, trying to lobby to lead. Whereas it's the backup singers that own the stage. They can mess up the lead vocal anytime. They can mess him up, they can mess her up. If they don't give him or give her the right vibes, they're not there. But it's a Western concept. The African traditional concept is the community that owns that music. It's not the lead vocal. It's not anybody. It's that community. That issue of copyright is not something that was in vogue in old Africa. The community owns the art. So what I'm trying to say is this. One of the things that helps us and that can help us in our splash in Africa is not to say because it is in Europe, it is in America, it is here and there. No, that is not it. Before we can also key into it, it took us a long time to accept that parallel harmony is good. Because what we are taught in the class is no parallel harmony, no hidden octave, all those things. Until we got to the field and see that these things are the things people are practicing in the field. So we still subject it. I agree with everything Dr. Ride has said. There are big journals about it. There are people that, and if you see the examples he has made, a pianist in South Africa, a jazz pianist there, and another person he also mentioned. These are all people who are involved in stage production, performances, now specializing in artistic research. So you will see that to use artistic research as methodology is stronger than making it a field. I hope one of these days we have a robust conference about it and using those examples that all those who have specialized from what my brother has just said now are performers. And that's where creative musicology comes in. So I belong to, as at today, as at this discourse now, I want to belong to the school of thought that says artistic research is a methodology to achieving good work in creative musicology. And I will cite the same examples. If a pianist, a jazz pianist, is specializing in his field in artistic research, go and find out what he has played on the piano. I've not seen those works. He has only used that method to achieve what he wants to achieve in his goal on his instrument. So I will just play it. And I like this discourse and I enjoy it. We've learned a lot from it. My plea is that let our host, Organ House, and our in-house scholars, as I was corrected, also meet with the department. Let us have a very robust discourse on this. And probably the first book that will come out from Organ Studies will be Artistic Research or Creative Methodology. Is artistic research a field or a method? Maybe something like that. We can get chapters on it. Then we will now be convinced more. And okay, I can belong to both school of thoughts, or I don't belong to any, or I belong to one. But sincerely, from the examples we have now, all those who are involved in artistic research fields, most of them, if not all, are performers, either composers or an instrument player. So you will see that is the angle at which I am coming from when Mr. Tope was talking about artistic research and methodology. And that I didn't really get it. So what came to my mind straight, I must confess, I've read very few very few write-ups about artistic research, very few. So I will not say that I've read so much about it. But my own understanding and my background, scholarship style, sees artistic research as a methodology. And Brian, your idea has also helped me, has convinced me more to stand where I belong to, because all the examples, these are performers who now use that as methodology to present their works. That is just the simple thing. But I will plead with the host, our in-house scholars, let us come up with robust thing, because idea is not, nobody owns all the idea. It's when we come together like this that we can make our community better and be acceptable at the global level. Thank you. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you. That was profound. Like we said,
Okay.
like we said earlier, that this is a safe space and also a platform that we engage ourselves with. Oh, okay. This is a safe space and where we engage ourselves critically, which we've done today, and that is awesome. So yeah, your idea is noted and I will do something about that. Thank you everybody for today. And once again, let's do well to read our book for next week. With me here again is
Modupe Kachi.
Alade Oluwashimiri.
and I am Grace Adegoke, your host for today. Thank you very much. See you next week. Bye.